All right. So before we begin, just a reminder that this meeting offers live interpretation with Spanish. So in order to take advantage of the Spanish interpretation resource, you're going to, in your Zoom window, navigate to the meeting/webinar controls, which on a desktop looks like that globe, and then on a mobile device is those three dots, and then you will click on that button and click on the language that you'd like to hear. To hear an interpreted language only, you're going to click mute original audio. And then as a participant joining a language channel, you can broadcast back into the main audio channel if you unmute yourself and speak. And as a reminder, folks who are joining and will be in the English channel, you still should go ahead and click the interpretation setting and click the English channel so that you can hear the live interpretation. Over to you, Francisco.
Hey.
Thank you, Chris. Bienvenidos a todos. Y como siempre, estas reuniones son bilingües y para poder aprovechar y escuchar la interpretación, si hacen el favor de pulsar el globito de la interpretación en la parte inferior derecha de su pantalla. Si están haciendo por teléfono, deben de seleccionar los tres puntitos tal como los ve en la pantalla en la parte derecha y seleccionar la interpretación idiomática y seleccionan el idioma de su preferencia. Todos debemos de seleccionar un idioma, de esa manera podemos escuchar la interpretación ya sea del inglés al español o del español al inglés. Thank you, Chris.
Yes.
Do you want me to go ahead and go, Chris?
Yep.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. We're so excited for you to be here with us tonight. We have a really informative and I think exciting agenda today, especially with the National Western Stock Show update, the Washington Street design updates on that, and some city updates I think you'll find very interesting. I wanted just to thank you for all being here tonight. I know it's right before the holiday seasons and you're probably doing a lot of things to get ready for that. And so we appreciate the time you're offering us tonight. With that, we're going to just jump into the National Western Stock Shows, and Karen Woods from the National Western is going to update us on what's going on over there.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I just wanted to kind of answer any questions and then give you updates on what we're preparing for as we get through December and, of course, launch the National Western, the 117th year here. That will be the 7th of January through the 22nd. I know most of you are aware. We have the parade that's going to kick off downtown on the 5th. And fingers crossed that we're not canceling because of the weather like we've done in the past, but Dr. Temple Grandin will be our parade grand marshal. So that's very exciting and a wonderful nod to what's happening down at the Spur campus and all she's contributed to the ag community. And then I'm happy to run through any of the events. As far as new or different, most of it's going to be through some of the specialty acts or some of the exhibitors and breeds that are coming in this year. So those, we're just hearing about a lot of those entries that are happening now, but the majority of our ticketed events will stay the same. And I did want to make sure that everyone knows, and I'd like to get something out in the community, a press release and some more information out about our Free Grounds Emission Day. That's on Tuesday, the 10th. And a lot of our weekday and rodeo tickets and dog show tickets, horse show tickets, things like that are priced at levels up from 12 up to 18. And then kids are $5 and kids under 2 are free. So happy to answer any questions that anyone might have that I possibly can answer. But I just wanted to sort of thank everyone for being there and supporting the stock show as you always do. And hopefully we'll all be able to make some time to come down.
Any question for Karen's and Karen?
No se está escuchando el español.
Okay, gracias, María. Fernando, ¿nos puede ayudar con eso o Chris? Okay. María, ¿se puede ahorita?
Sí. A
Okay.
ustedes los estoy escuchando en español.
Oh, pues déjeme hablar en inglés. Can you hear me now, María? Or are you getting translation now?
Lo estoy escuchando a usted.
Are you hearing the translator? Did you press the button at the globe at the bottom of your computer? Okay. All right. Avísanos si necesita ayuda, María, por favor. Okay. We're
Ok,
going to move on.
Gracias.
Thank you. And we have a lot of updates to share with you. Mark and Todd are going to talk to us about the design and construction at 47th through 52nd. And I know many of you have been involved in the discussions throughout this, and we'll get a good project update from both of them.
Yeah, well, hello, everyone. I'm Mark Gonzalez. I'm the city project manager. I'm back again to update you all on Washington. You know, at our last meeting, we kind of talked about, we were really picking up the concept and running with it, and we've made a lot of progress on design. So just kind of an overview, right? So we're specifically talking 47th to 52nd on Washington. We've got a plethora of funding sources that we've utilized. Specifically, we were able to win a federal RAISE grant that to help us really kind of push the vision of the project forward. So we've updated our concept from what everybody looked at last meeting. This was now 2 months ago, which was the same concept we presented at our in-person meeting. So now we're ready to kind of present kind of the more or less the final take. You know, there's some small minor design tweaks going on, but as far as what the road's going to look like, what the sidewalks look like, we're ready to start presenting that information. So you can jump to the next slide. So we'll kind of take you.
While we're doing that, Mark, can I just remind everybody, if they have
yeah.
questions, they can use the meeting chat to do that, or else just feel free to ask questions, and we'll stop periodically so that if
Yeah.
you do have any questions, we can make sure Mark
Perfect.
can hear them.
No,
Thanks,
thank
Mark.
you, Catherine. Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, we'll take this kind of section by section. So similar to how we kind of presented this last time, we'll start at 47th and work our way forward. So I think maybe the biggest piece, that one thing that was kind of left hanging, was our planning study kind of called out this kind of 2-lane traffic road of 1 lane of traffic in each direction with a center turn lane as the likely solution, but not kind of matter of fact. I am happy to move forward and saying this is something that we are moving forward with. It is going to be a 2-lane road. It's not going to expand to be wider. We are working on maintaining a center turn lane throughout where there is room. So as we start here on the south side of 47th and work our way north, you can kind of see we're still pretty tight. There's no way to put kind of a center turn lane or median in there. And I guess as a reminder on kind of what these sections look like, the yellow is our 10-foot sidewalk. The blue color is the 8-foot amenity zone. A couple places it gets a little bit smaller than 8 feet, but that's the intent. And then it doesn't show color here anymore, but we'll talk about it when we move to the next slide. It's also maintaining parking along the street to the best of our ability. And that's mostly from 48th moving forward, where that parking kind of starts showing up. There isn't enough room for parking here on the south side, just due to how tight things are between buildings and the railroad. And as another reminder, you know, the intent is to kind of minimize impact to our existing businesses, to our existing community on the corridor, and really trying to optimize where we have space. So the purple color is kind of a new color this time that wasn't shown last time. That's where driveways are. So you can kind of see where driveways are previously. We are maintaining driveway access. And then the last thing I guess to point out are you can see the red RTD symbols. That is where RTD stops are currently, and we're looking at how do we prioritize where RTD stops are. We're looking at, you know, can we provide shelters? We are definitely providing benches is the direction we're moving. So benches will be provided where there's sometimes just a pole, and we're looking at where can we provide shelters as well as we move up the corridor. So this section here south of 48th is kind of, it's pretty constrained with the buildings and trying to minimize impacts that we're having to the community. And then as we move north of the railroad, you can see this green space. That's the 48th Greenway project that's coming in. That's going to realign 48th Street, and it's going to have some green actual space as we move forward. And that's kind of what this segment looks like. So south of 48th, it gets a little tight, and then this cross section really opens up as we move north of 48th.
Mark,
so
we
I
have
guess
several
I'll stop
questions.
here. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Perfect. I'll stop
So,
here and happy to answer your question.
Yeah, Giovanni is wondering what the total investment is for 47th to 52nd, including all the sources. Is that what you've listed on the project update?
Yep. So that previous slide kind of calls out what the Elevate bond is, what our CIP portion is, what we're working with Adams County on, and what the federal raise grant is. So it's a little under 50 million for this, and then it gets a little complicated for me because 51st, the realignment project, is also ongoing at the same time. So the two projects together, 51st realignment and this, are roughly 60. I think the sole portion of Washington is 48, something right around 48.
And then how wide will the sidewalks be?
Yep, that's a great question. They will be 10 feet. We've looked at trying to expand them to 12, and due to space constraints, budget constraints, and what's actually just feasible on the corridor, 10 feet is going to be the sidewalk length that we're working with.
And Maria has a question about the benches. How wide are they? Is that what you're asking, Maria?
No, las banquetas. Pero acaba de decir lo que 10 pies.
Oh, the sidewalks, I'm sorry.
Sí. Ujú.
Okay, I'm sorry. I misinterpreted the word. I'm sorry.
Gracias.
Okay, so if you want to jump to kind of the next section. So kind of from 48th here north, we're able to really see the full cross section that we want to see. So you can kind of see here at the bottom center of the map, this is what the cross section looks like. So you can see the 10-foot sidewalk, the 8-foot amenity zone. You can see what the parking lane looks like, the travel lane looks like, the turn lane looks like, all the way across. So on a previous concept, you probably saw kind of a purple color where that was kind of calling out parking. It got a little confusing showing it in this manner, so that color is gone, but it is there. The parking exists. You can see a solid white line. For instance, if you look between 49th and 50th, as the bulb kind of comes in around the edges, you see a solid white line, and inside of there is where parking would be. Yep, exactly. Yep. So that would kind of be where the parking is. And so this cross section we're working on maintaining all the way across the corridor. Once again, you see this big RTD, the red stop. The goal was to have them as close as possible to 47th, 49th, and 51st as the priority. So we've been working with RTD on how to locate the stops and where they're going to fit with the design. There are an awful lot of driveways, specifically down between the 40s in the 47th section, and trying to fit these RTD stops is something we're still working through. So these aren't final. And this is something we're still working forward through. But as we move forward, this is roughly the goal is to make them at 47th, 49th, and 51st, where that's the stops we're trying to prioritize and place them in places that make the most sense, both for RTD, both for ridership, and for what it fits in the space. So we're looking at the full cross section. Once again, purple is existing drives. We're working on calling them out where they are and trying to ensure that they maintain access. So if you have access currently, maintaining access is the priority It will not go away. It will still exist. If you had it previous, it will still be there.
And Mark,
yeah.
Nancy's wondering what will be in the designated amenity zones.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. We're still working through that. Will actually is going to speak up here in a few minutes. He's with Livable Cities. He's one of the consultants who's working with us here in Denver on what might be able to go there. So we're actually seeking feedback as part of this meeting on what you guys like, what you don't like, and it's something that we'll be working forward as we move forward.
Okay, so we'll get to that in Will's presentation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Great.
Yep.
And then if you want to hop to the next section. And then so kind of this last segment, this is, you know, halfway between 50th and 51st, moving forward to 52nd. Once again, the pink section is the 51st realignment project. So it is a separate design and construction effort. So it is moving forward at almost the same speed that Washington is. So as Washington is basically speeding up to catch up to 51st, and they're going to hit construction and go through the final design phases at the same time. We're mostly speeding up Washington because of that $14 million that we got in federal funding to help us realize the full vision. We're speeding up Washington, and so it's catching 51st, and they're going to kind of step through construction together. So that pink section is relevant to what we're talking about in the corridor, but it's kind of a separate effort that's going to be moving forward at the same time. But once again, so here we call it RTD stops. We call it the sidewalk, and the big change here, specifically north of 51st, is what things look like north. What things look like north of 51st, because we're trying to limit the impact that we're having in the community. You're seeing that the final design, and there might be some wiggle room in the future, but this is really kind of the concept that we're moving forward with. Is we're going to be able to maintain the 10-foot multi-use sidewalk on both sides of the street, but that amenity zone no longer fits in this area. We're looking at alternatives on, does a median make sense? Can we put green space in here? We're still not really sure on that step. We're looking on the west side of the road. Can we fit in more green space here? Can we fit in some art here? Can we fit in some wayfinding, some signage, maybe a neighborhood sign, right? We're kind of exploring all of these concepts. But as far as the kind of technical design of the street goes, an amenity zone doesn't really fit on that east side of the road. And so this is what we're moving forward with from here as we explore more concepts. So I see a couple of hands. I'm happy to answer questions.
Let's
Adrian,
go with,
I saw yours
yeah,
first.
let's go with Adrian, then Gail, and then Nancy.
Yeah, hi, this is Adrian. I have a question about 51st going west there. My understanding is you're going to increase the flow of traffic through there. Is that right?
So currently 51st is a kind of one lane of traffic in each direction, and that's maintaining. We're not adding new travel lanes, if that's what you're asking me.
Because the last time they gave this presentation, just a month or so back, they said they were going to make it like a freeway, because they wanted to connect it up to Broadway is on the west side of that, and then it goes up to 58th, and then it goes over to 46th. But the thing about that is there's a lot of traffic up and down there as it is all day and every day, because I live right up on the just further west than what you've got on there.
Yeah.
And we're literally right across the street from I-25, where we get the pollution from I-25, with a few blocks north of I-70, so we get the pollution from I-70. We're right in the corner there of I-70 and I-25, and we get all the pollution, and then we're sitting on a ton of pollution, which has been there for years. And over the years, I've been trying to reduce the volume of traffic on the west, going west from Washington to Broadway. And this is actually, I've lived here for 20 years. It's one of the first things I've tried to do, but it's obviously falling on deaf ears. But this is, it's going to be horrendous, because this is a constant flow of traffic all day and every day. It kind of slows down around 6 or 7 o'clock at night, picks up again around 9 because everybody starts driving up from Washington up 51st to go to Grizzly Rose and all of that. And then it's up and down there pretty much for the rest of the night. So it's in constant use. And if anything, I would like to see access only signs on Washington and 51st and on Broadway and 51st, so that only traffic that needs deliveries or that people live there, but not for a general freeway because it's getting out of hand. I mean,
yeah, I appreciate the feedback, Adrian. I can let you know the intent is not to make 51st a freeway. The project of 51st realignment is to make that intersection safer, to make it more visible as you cross it and as you see it. There are no additional travel lanes being put in place. There are sidewalks being put in place and a bike lane being put on the street itself, west of 51st. So the intent of the 51st project is basically to make it safer and to make it more pedestrian and friendly for anybody working.
There are no sidewalks. There are no sidewalks at the moment.
And the project is bringing sidewalks. That is what the 51st is.
And it's pretty much used as a parking lot because there's a bunch of semis parked up and from Washington pretty much all the way up to the railroad tracks. But, you know, I don't think that's anything to do with you, but that's the situation we have right now. But if you can reduce the flow of traffic, I not just me, but anybody that lives probably, you know, within 20 blocks of this highway will greatly appreciate it because it's a health hazard. There's no question about it. It's a huge health hazard. We've already got pollution from I-25. So, you know, it's a mess out there. And adding any more traffic is just going to make it worse for us.
Thank
and our
you,
property
Adrian.
values are going to go down. Thank you.
Thank you, Adrian. Gail? You're on mute.
Can you
There you
come? Yeah, can you come back to me? I'm just trying to take in what Adrian said, and I'm going to
Okay.
try to work that into my question.
Okay, Nancy?
Sure, let me see. Okay, I'm on everything.
You
Okay, first of all, what's the width of the sidewalks that are already there on the west side of Washington?
I guess it depends on which point of the street. I mean, at which point, right? I think 5 feet is some of them are less than 5. The ones that are in good repair, I think are 5, and I think some of them are even less than 5. I think you get down to some of the 3.5 or 4 foot sections in some areas.
Okay, so so I'm trying to get what is going to change on Washington Street. Okay, it's going to get prettied up, which is fine by me and those of us who go down Washington Street all the time, I guess. But again, I'm very curious as to what the amenities will be. Is there going to be a left turn lane going at 51st and Washington that will be when you're heading north on 51st, so that you'll have a left turn light to go west on 51st? Right now, there isn't. It's 2 lanes and there's no left turn.
So as you come away from the river, is there going to be a dedicated turn lane onto Washington?
On Washington to turn west.
Yep.
On 51st.
Yeah. So if you look at our concept, you can kind of see how there is currently an arrow in a white line that's leading.
Oh, that's the turn lane.
That is the turn lane that will go to westbound 51st. Yep.
Oh, okay. That's just great. And may I be able to see further south than on this, like the previous slide?
I think so. There it is. Yeah.
Okay, to see, yes, because that's 50th and that. So the new thing will be sidewalks on the east side. Is that correct? On the east side of Washington?
Yeah, I mean.
The yellow is sidewalk?
The yellow is sidewalk. That is correct.
And also
Okay.
widened.
Yeah, and also widened, and also not falling apart. I mean, some of the sidewalk segments are basically not even there on Washington.
I think everyone who's a
Yeah,
resident or
right.
business owner is well aware of the conditions that that are there. So, and what is the width of Washington Street right now?
So the current width, oh man.
I know
Dave,
it varies, but let's say in front of Project Angel Heart where there's going to be more
Yeah.
sidewalks on
you
both sides.
don't quote me on this.
Okay.
I'm fuzzy on the number. So it's gonna stretch up to 60 feet. I believe that's our full segment. And I mean, let me do the math real fast, right? I'm blanking on those actual numbers. So if you look at, you know, the two 10-foot sidewalks, the three 11-foot travel lanes, that's 53 feet right there. And then you're looking at a further 16 feet on each side, so a further 32. So you're looking at almost 80 feet as the full cross section, and I believe we're expanding it about 25. So it's going from roughly 55 feet to roughly 80 feet.
Okay, so where are you going to get the property for the wider sidewalks? Because
Sure.
right now the sidewalks are right up against Washington Street, right
Yeah,
up against the street, and then you're going to add amenity zones on both sides. But
yeah, that's a great comment. If you look at this map, it's a little bit hard to see. There's kind of a purple line that's straight
Yes.
with a dash in it. So
yes,
those are the property lines and the right-of-way lines. And so we have two different curves in the street itself. And the
Okay.
objective is, how do we maintain this cross section that we want to see by expanding roughly 25 feet without impacting the current uses and businesses and residences on Washington?
yeah.
And so that's
Okay.
why there's two little curves in the street, and it's basically to avoid buildings. So if you look south of this City of Denver property that's on the map right now, you can see that sidewalk goes really close to those current buildings, to that purple line. And if you look at the other side of the street next to what says Denver Scrap Recycling,
Yeah.
you can kind of see that purple line is easier to see at Project Angel Heart, where that purple line runs through the amenity zone, where we are looking
Yes.
at basically expanding on that side of the street. So this concept is going to be up on the website tomorrow morning. Anybody's welcome to go
Okay.
download it. You can study it in more detail. Feel free to send us questions, but the intent is basically to minimize impacts to buildings. And so there's two small curves in the street to as we move the street from one side to the other, to avoid impacts to buildings themselves and trying to take space from empty parking lots and things of that nature.
Okay, well, I'm belaboring a point here, but I'm really trying hard to understand this. If you get like across the street from Denver Scrap Metal, okay, like where your A is there, you know, if you go across the street west, okay, there are buildings, right? I mean, okay, there are buildings on that sidewalk. That sidewalk is not very wide. And then there's a little strip of dirt. And then it's the street. If you're going to have a 10-foot sidewalk and an amenity zone, to me, it seems like that is going to encroach upon the street traffic lane, which is there right now. Right now they have parking, they park on the street. So are you taking the parking away then? So that, I mean,
Nancy
Yeah,
and Mark,
so-
can I jump in? a
Sure,
little?
please,
Yeah.
Karen.
So I think, Nancy, you described it well, and Mark is describing it well. I think there's just a little bit of disconnect. So there will
Okay.
be right of way taken. What Mark is saying, we're trying to minimize the impact on structures. There will be right of way that is outside of the existing right of way. So we're going to need more room, just like you're saying, Nancy, to do things. So the travel lanes won't be right where they are now. And Mark was talking about needing a squiggle, that we're scooting things to one side and another so that we're reducing impact on the existing buildings. But we will need additional right of way to make this happen. And that additional right of way, as Mark was saying, we're scooting towards Superior Farms. So we're taking additional land from a parking lot as opposed to taking the first 10 feet of all the buildings across the street. So we're
Okay, so,
scooting things
okay.
one direction there. And then Mark was saying, we're scooting things up in some areas and down in other areas so that we're trying to avoid the buildings as much as possible, but there will be additional right of way. Does that help a little bit?
Okay, so what it seems to me is then, if I'm understanding it correctly, just this section of Washington Street, let's just take from 49th to 50th. The land that's going to be taken is the land that's on the east side, not on the west side of
I like-
Washington Street.
I like calling it the riverside.
The riverside. Okay, yeah, we can all understand that, the riverside.
Yeah, and
Okay,
it varies a little bit. It's not quite so perfect because there's a transition. You know, you've got to get the intersection where you're improving and making all those safety improvements for all the different modes, for people walking and biking and all that. You've got some transition between when it's on one side and another, but that's a good way of looking at it. And as Mark said, all of the plans will be there and you can kind of dive in a little bit, but this is still high level, and their technical drawings will be working with individual property owners to go through details on their site. There's a lot more there, but big picture,
right.
big picture is trying to reduce impact on existing buildings and still, and we're scooting where things are. So it,
I get it.
yeah, the existing travel lane will still be, there'll still be
Yeah,
travel
so-
lanes. They just won't
yeah.
be exactly where they are now.
So let me
No.
move us on. Let's
Thanks,
move us on.
Catherine.
And then Nancy, if we can, you'll have access to those tomorrow, and also always can talk directly with Mark. So I'm gonna ask Gail to.
Well, I'm gonna ask that I have my questions answered right now.
Well, let's
And-
go to Gail first so that we can get a lot of questions, and I'll come back to you.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so my question is, you did not say what is in the amenity zone.
Sure. Yeah. So actually, so after me, Will, he's one of the consultants we've hired at Denver to help us figure out what can fit in there. He's actually going to present on options and seek feedback on what you guys in the community want to see in it. So we're basically allotting 8 feet of space, right, wherever possible. And one of the things that Will's actually present on is, here are some options. Here's kind of the range of things. What do you like? What do you not like? Do you like things that are more historical, things that are more green, things that are more wild? And that's actually what we'll present on here in a couple of minutes.
And Gail, kind of answering that question as well, is it depends how much folks want to help with the maintenance, and that's part of the conversation as well.
Right. Well, I just feel like when we started this conversation, it was all about tree-lined streets. That's super important to us as neighbors. And I'm just not hearing that in this conversation. So I just
We
want.
just haven't gotten there yet. So I think that part of the presentation is
All
next.
right.
Okay.
So
So
I guess
guess this
Okay.
is a fair point. I'm happy to speak to just for a minute. And one of the reasons that we ended up at this, like for instance, this 2-lane travel, 1 lane of travel in each direction. One of the reasons we have these bulb outs shown at these intersections is the biggest intent of the whole project is we want this to be a very walkable area. Why are we making priorities for amenity zones? Why did this come down to only 2 lanes of travel? Because we want this to be walkable. We want bikes on here. We want this to be pet friendly, to be bus friendly, to be bicycle friendly. We want this to be like a new community hub of a main street, right? This is really the intent of the whole project. So I do apologize that that's not like the message you're hearing from me. I am an engineer. I do get kind of very detail specific, especially with design, as I'm working forward, pushing different pieces forward of the project. But I'm excited for you to hear, Will, because this is really what we do want to hear of feedback. We want your feedback. We want to present options of what things could look like, because we are excited for what this can be in the future.
Okay,
and I
let's,
just had one more
yeah,
comment.
go
before
ahead,
we-
Gail. Yeah,
before
go
we
ahead.
on. And I agree with Adrian. I'm just horrified at the thought of increased traffic along 51st. And, you know, I hope the plan, and I don't know how we could get more residents involved with this, but I wish that the plan would be to decrease that traffic, as, I mean, it's just already a nightmare up there with so many tractor trailers going through there on a daily basis. So that's all I have to say for now.
Okay, Nancy, do you have a question or comment? Adrian? Or Nancy, do you? Go ahead.
Yes, I didn't do the deal.
Button, yeah.
Now
ahead.
I'm forgetting. If we go back, let's go south again. I know that it was a question. I wanted to see what was happening at 47th. Okay, because that was where I know Anthony Yelnick brought that up about going east towards the river there, coming on 47th to Washington Street, that there was a need to have a right turn lane there, and not to have the one lane that comes out of the community to be one lane where people can either go straight or go right, because traffic gets backed up there.
Yep, we have heard that comment. It is something our traffic engineering division is looking at on what we can do and how we can program something. For this specific project, it is outside the scope of what we can do. Due to the way we've received federal funding, we have very specific constraints on what the limits of the intersection look like. And in order for us to do that, we'd have to start moving not only south of 47th, but west as well of Washington. And so it is outside the scope of this specific project.
Okay, then who, what city agency do the residents go to get some action done on that?
So Nancy, that is already being investigated by our area engineers. There's a 311, I believe, in on that. So that's something that our area engineers are already looking at.
What's 311? What do you mean that there's a 311?
It's the
about?
process
Sorry,
that's
that's our-
used to, yeah.
Oh,
It's the
it's
process that's
something-
used, yeah, so
Yeah,
it's in.
the phone
it's in the pro-
number.
yeah.
Oh, well, I
the
know
phone
it's a
number that
phone
you call
number.
in to say the stop,
Oh, I know that part, Karen. I think we all do. So anyway, so is it Dottie then? That is
Yes,
taking
and that's
care of this?
And it's, well, we're not taking care of it. We're looking into what the data tells us, if additional elements need to be added to that signal or could be. So we are looking into the question that was raised.
Okay, and so then who at Dottie do we communicate with?
You can reach out through me, and what we committed to, I believe, a meeting or two ago, is that when we had an answer from the area engineer team, that we would share it here at the CAG.
Great. Well, we're always like, we always get like a nebulous time frame. And so that's one of the things why we need to know, so that, Anthony, anybody else can keep asking the question and know that it's just not out there in the never land. And so you understand that, Karen.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm gonna keep moving
Thank you,
everybody along,
Catherine.
because we've got quite an agenda to go. So I'm gonna ask Adrian, do you have a quick question, Adrian?
Yeah, it's a very quick question, and it's going to tag on to what Nancy said. It's going eastbound on 51st at Washington. There are no turn lanes to go north. Is it possible to put a turn lane in at the intersection of 51st and Washington, so you got a northbound
Good.
lane? I'm sorry.
Okay, they're, yes, they were,
So
taking the-
coming east on 51st, a northbound turn lane onto Washington.
Yes.
I'd have to look at, I didn't prepare my 51st drawing set, but I do believe actually that is in, I don't remember. I'm not going to commit to anything. I'd have to see what we presented. We have presented this in the past, and maybe that's something we can bring back up in the future, our 51st design set.
Mark, can we get back to the CAG, maybe through Chris, to answer that specific
Yeah,
question?
definitely. I think that's a great way to do it. Yep.
Okay, I'm going to move us along. And I think, do you have another slide, Mark? I'm sorry. I haven't.
Nope. Yeah, we're gonna jump to Will.
Oh, Will, with the amenities. Thank you, Will.
Hi there, everyone. Will Vietanen with Livable Cities. We're a landscape architecture and urban design firm. As Mark kind of mentioned, in the lead up here, we're now trying to, I think, we're beginning to translate sort of a transportation and engineering driven plan, that is blue and yellow, and we're starting to think about, what it could actually be and sort of develop concepts around, story, history, culture, and also, amenities and furnishings and life and, the actual public realm component of the project. So I think all of the questions, that weren't geared towards, daily traffic and all of that, I think are right on point. There are a lot of, project constraints, and addressing obviously right of way, but also, lineage and traffic and studies that are well beyond my ability to comprehend. But, now we're kind of starting up on this effort to kind of calibrate and orient towards actually, the neighborhood plan and the 2018-2019 study. So that's a little bit of just kind of a high and introduction. But yeah, we put together, 6-7 slides here, just based on the time. I'll just give you kind of an idea of maybe how we'll flow through it, and then we'll have a couple pause points where we can kind of talk and ask some questions and get some feedback, which would be really immensely helpful at this point. But essentially, first, I think we're gonna start, and it would be really helpful for our team, because of the kind of stop and go of some of these efforts, and the sequencing of development in this area, kind of reflect on what we've heard and we've done with RS&H, the civil engineering group who's leading the project, a deep dive in previous planning efforts and documentation for meetings and things like that to date. And so we'll kind of reflect on that, but also want to get some feedback in terms of, are there any glaring omissions relative to streetscape and urban design and aspirations? And then second, there are 3 sort of kind of, I guess, buckets of, I guess, core ideas that we pulled out from that, reflection, reviewing these previous studies as opportunities. Now, I will say, since we are kind of in this beginning of the urban design concept process, we're not going to be looking at and talking through specifics about what plants go where and what types of furnishing. It's more so about an overarching kind of narrative and idea, and then we will be kind of, as we kind of go together over the next couple of months, then drilling in on specifics of the concept. So translating the blue and the yellow that you saw on the previous slides into the vision and with visualizations and things like that. So that's a bit of an overview before I waste all my time just kind of talking like that. I think just first off, we wanted to kind of just put out there, again, from looking through this previous documentation and hearing some of the conversations from the CAG meetings in the last few months. One thing that kind of resonated with the team and with the city was the idea of this Washington Street as a scene, and connecting, bringing the neighborhood, community, and the river together. And I think actually Karen and Nancy sort of talked about that orientation of the river just a few minutes ago. But I think that's a really predominant sort of feature and aspect of the neighborhood, but that Washington Street, this development, is not just about sort of resolving, some of the traffic and safe crossings and things like that, but it's about really stitching east-west together and tying the community to the river, and broadly speaking to Denver. So here, this slide is kind of just, there were a number of studies, but this is kind of the two primary ones that we just wanted to pull forward some ideas. So I'll fly through them quickly. And then on the next slide, would like to pause on sort of key takeaways. So from the neighborhood plan, strong, unique, there are some really core ideas that are pulled forward about showcasing the history of Globeville, embracing the unique physical attributes, reinforcing and enhancing sense of place, and performance, storm drainage, water quality. Additionally, walkability, connectivity, and then, safety in terms of, just on the street, on sidewalks, feeling comfortable, but then at crossings, multimodal connectivity. And then additionally, in the corridor study, which followed a few years after that, some key kind of ideas emerged, and I think were reflected in the early, translations of the plans in this most recent last kind of year effort to the plan that we saw today that Mark presented. And it's make Washington Street an attractive corridor that creates a positive sense of place, attracts private reinvestment, and better accommodates all transportation modes, provides safe routes and facilities for all modes of transportation, and then prioritize multimodal connections. So I think that's kind of where we kind of, pulled together a few different core ideas. And if we could go to the next slide, I'm actually not driving this presentation, but they all kind of tie back to the neighborhood plan's 4 chapters, unique, strong, connected, and healthy. And the word cloud on the right is a bit of, just pulling out some key themes that really kind of emerged in these various studies and in various conversations and meeting notes and things like that. Now, it's not, this wasn't generated by, putting in all the text. It's more so a little bit subjective in our part in kind of reading through. And so what I think I'd like to pause right here, and I think maybe for a few minutes, just, kind of open it up and see if from this, if there are any sort of like key drivers that maybe, should be kind of mentioned here or were missed. And again, this is not comprehensive. This is just, some core ideas, just to kind of orient.
I'm sorry to jump in, but I'm wondering if there's any way, I know we have a pretty short amount of time. I'm wondering if there's any way we could get to some graphics showing people a little bit of what is possible. And then if we have time at the end, we can circle back and we could even look at doing a survey for folks. But if you have any graphics, we talked about a couple different options that we could show there and get some feedback, because I think we need to kind of move forward, right, Catherine?
Yes, and I'm just going to say that there'll be 3 of these slides, so don't think that this is the only suggestion, that there's going to be 3 different sort of views of that, just so that, and we go one more, Sherry, I think, just so that you see that it's going to all, that there's a lot of ideas. So we'll go back to the first, Will's first slide there, and then kind of start.
Perfect.
There.
Yeah, no, thank you, Catherine. And honestly, I could talk for a while, so I don't have a clue on the allotted amount of time, but I know, primarily we'd like to get through and then, be able to kind of, then I think that's the best approach, to kind of hear and listen. So these, like I said, 3 buckets. It's history, community and culture, and then sustainability and resilience. Now, these are not just to clarify, it's not a singular, the street would only represent history and, speak towards that. These are, we're trying to feel out the possibilities with you all, and then, essentially kind of put that together into, a couple alternatives that would then, translate into plan and section and visualization. So, again, the history theme that really emerged from the neighborhood plan. So On the left-hand side, these are a couple images, of, an existing church, but also the smelter, smokestack, way back when, but then actually translating that into interpretation on the street or marking and telling those stories from, placards and sort of like inlay paving in image number 4. To then down on image number 5, it's actually more of a sort of interpretive, like narrative inlay that is speaking about, this one's about like a naval ship and a port city. And then in number 6, it's actually a vertical sort of element that actually can talk about, say, community leaders or some sort of, period in time or, highlight a portion of history. If we could go to the next slide. In community and culture on the left-hand side, these are a couple of the terminating view and underpass murals. I'm sorry, my dogs are barking like crazy in the background. But on the right, just to the right of that, in image number 2 is an example of sort of like functional streetscape furnishing. So this is, a bike rack, but, kind of has a fun flair to it. Versus number 3, it's actually sort of pavement markings. And this could be a way to, represent and connect to, amenities and, the Argo Park or community kind of centers and things like that. And kind of serve as orientation, or they could also, again, talk about be more temporal and have a sort of event component. And then number 5 is directional wayfinding, and 6 is sort of an opportunity for some sort of gateway, signage and moment either on the north side or the south side, or even both, that orient and tie towards the neighborhood of Globeville as well as to the city itself, potentially depending on the direction. And then in the next slide, the third bucket, sustainability and resilience. On the left-hand side, organized are a little bit of a sort of lower maintenance kind of set of options, and and then as it moves to the right-hand side, grades to higher maintenance. And as Karen mentioned earlier, sort of the maintenance district, or some capacity of shared maintenance is kind of a big component in terms of what actually can be implemented and maintained long-term. So on the left-hand side,
and Will, can I jump in again for a second?
Yep,
I'm sorry.
absolutely.
Just, I think folks are pretty excited to see some designs that show landscaping elements, and that's something that we want to hear back, like, yes, we're interested in landscaping. And I just wanted to clarify what I said before is that for some of the amenities, some of the elements that would go into the amenity zone would need maintenance. And we did at the open house talk with property owners directly on Washington as to the level of interest in establishing a local maintenance district, and there was a fair amount of interest in looking into that further, and a desire to know a bit more of what that meant and what designs could be in that amenity zone. So we're still working through that a bit, and Will is giving us an overview of sort of the wider range, not just what could happen from a specific design of landscape in that amenity zone, but that bigger picture of thinking about the history, thinking about art and interpretation, and then also thinking about actual landscape material that could happen in there. So I just wanted to give folks a moment and share that, because I know there are a bunch of hands up and some interest in knowing more there. And I see Adrian's comment about trees. That fits within that conversation that Will is mentioning of sustainability and resilience, and the opportunity to have landscape like trees, like shrubs, incorporating elements like stormwater planters with street trees, as you see, Will, in number 7. And there's all sorts of different opportunities there. Right, Will?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the reason that this slide was sort of, it's showing a spectrum, being that, there's a, the maintenance component is a driver of, what sort of can thrive long-term. However, ultimately, we understand that, alignment with the 2018 plan and the neighborhood plan itself, really from the sustainability perspective, we're looking at opportunities to have the street perform, from a stormwater management standpoint and from a green infrastructure standpoint. We understand that, climate change and awareness of and being proactive with that is really profoundly important with this group and with the broader community. The team is looking at opportunities to integrate that. And absolutely, street trees. I'm an advocate to plant more trees everywhere. That's why I'm a landscape architect. We absolutely think where possible that these can have a profound impact on shading and mitigating heat island effect, and creating a softer and more just active and engaging public realm, not just on Washington Street.
I'm
but
seeing a number of questions that I'm just going to try to do a real brief overview. There are many local maintenance districts around the city. East Colfax, West Colfax, we can get you a list of those. And those are areas where folks are doing Welton Street, where folks are doing maintenance of planters, trees, sometimes trash cans, recycling bins, that sort of thing. So there are a lot of, it's a lower level of intensity rather than something that is a business improvement district or a general improvement district like Brighton is. Brighton is a general improvement district. There's a whole range of options, and we'll be talking more about that at our next meeting, but we can certainly get you information in between now and then. Because I'm trying to look through a number of the questions, but the focus is really understanding what folks want. Do you want a hardscape amenity zone? Do you want a softscape? Hardscape means concrete, art, historic interpretation elements. Softscape means green things. And I'm just oversimplifying it, or a mix of those, something that incorporates historic elements, that incorporates art elements, that incorporates benches or bike parking. So that's the big picture. There's
Karen,
a lot.
can I reiterate? It isn't an
Yes.
either or.
Absolutely
It can
not.
be actually
Great point.
all of these at
Yes.
different places along Washington Street. So when you think about
Absolutely.
what you want or would like to see along Washington Street, remember it can be all of this. And it could be just by different sections. Some will have green space, some will have art, some could have wayfinding, some could be, a different thing. So, and usually when I see these pictures there, you can have 7 pictures, and sometimes you even see 25 pictures because the options are endless. But I think what both Will and Karen are trying to get to is where sort of, what do you, all of this, what would you like to see most of? And, or, is you see only this or only that, or would you like to see a mixture? What sort of pieces would be within these 3 values? What would you like to see? So I'm going to open it up for questions. And I think, Gail, you've had your hand up for a long time.
Right. So like I said in my comment, we're drowning in pollution. So having the city do something because they need tourists to come to the National Western Center doesn't excite me much. And I want to be more positive about this. I would just love to see not 10-foot sidewalks, but huge meandering green tree filled walkways. I am sorry, I'm almost just in tears just thinking about what this is going to bring to our neighborhood. So I don't know, but I'm just super disappointed. And I understand the city has to do this. We have to get these tourists, we have to get this money to the National Western Center, and it's going to be at a cost to our residents, and it's more traffic and more concrete. And, you know, I understand that we can't have, you know, this huge, I would like for it to feel like a park all the way from Fox Street Station all the way to the National Western Center. You know, we need 20 to 30 feet of conifers planted next to the highway. There's so much need, and we have so much pollution, and unfortunately this is going to just bring more. And so it's hard to just be in a conversation about this when we know what's coming.
Gail, I think
Thank you.
that's really great feedback, because this is intended to be for the community and based on feedback from the community as to what we can do. So let's take that. I want to take your comments and work on how we can incorporate that to make that that sidewalk, that multi-use sidewalk, be comfortable and have green. And I think that's really helpful feedback. And I appreciate how emotional this is for you. So thank you.
I'm going to go to send back. I don't know who that is. I'm sorry.
Central Vectors. This is AE.
Oh, hi, AE.
Hi there. Very specifically in relationship to what Gail was saying, Karen, I think now is the time to bring the forester in and talk about the reclamation of canopy by geometric square footage, which is a policy in Denver. Factor in the trees that were taken down at Gloveville Landing outfall. I think this is a multi-year conversation regarding a quality of life being the first priority. Coming in from the history of the neighborhood plan, even the neighborhood plan that was done in the 80s. Quality of life begins with physical safety and comfort. There are many streets where you can walk for blocks and not be out of shade. This is what is reasonable. I'm not concerned about catering to the National Western Center, and I am a supporter of the economic vitality that still needs to be realized, and some course corrections with the National Western. But I feel like the interior quality of life of the Gloveville neighborhood should be priority number one. And I think the appropriate term to use is, what is the balance between the historical and the sociological markers and the comfortable environment? And I'm going to continue to ride side saddle with Anthony on, I feel like with the right turn lane going east on 47th, please do a mailing to all of the neighbors in Gloveville saying, what are your commute times? When do you need access to Washington Street? When you say you're gathering information, that's great, but let's go directly to the database whose lives are affected. And I think that the maintenance district, I forgot the exact term.
You got it.
Great idea.
You got it's local maintenance district. You got the term.
So I think so I think that it could be leveraged for an economy that supports, and a term we hear quite often, but I don't think we can overuse it, as an equity in the environment. We should be able to walk down the streets and feel the shade, and I'm not seeing the shade over the benches on Washington Street. So let's reclaim. Let's bring the forester. Let's get the mathematics, and let's make it happen.
Very valuable. Thank you. Thank
So,
you, Gail.
guys,
Thank you, AE.
Catherine, can I jump in for 1 second? I've tried to stay kind of quiet, but I do want to point out, I know this conversation is kind of going all over the place, and I understand that you guys are not liking the kinds of images being shown, or that you're not getting to what this is. Tonight's conversation was initially set up to talk about the prioritization on the part of the community around historical elements, community and cultural components, and sustainability, resilience, or green elements. So I think it's really clear from what we're hearing, green is number one, right? Everybody that's obvious, and I think we'll take that back. But I think we wanted to kind of weigh what do you Do you want to prioritize some historical elements to this street? Is that not really that important? Are there cultural moments you'd like to preserve or create? And really, this was more of an information gathering session about the specifics, but I know that we're running low on time. And so if it's possible, maybe in the chat, you can just enter some of your comments or priorities about the type of thing you'd like to see. The next time that we come back for the Washington team, we will have alternatives for the streetscape. Okay, so they
And
will.
Beth, I'd like to add a couple of things just in response to AE. We have been in conversations with the forester and with our green infrastructure group. So those are points well taken, and those conversations will continue. And Beth, excellent points. We're really looking at priorities, but also we do have set aside funding for wayfinding and historic interpretation that we worked with the community on through the plan that will also collaborate with Adams County. So there's a lot of different layers here.
Yeah, so maybe we move on, but
Yeah,
you can add some to the chat and we'll take that back with us.
yeah, that's great. Let's make sure Adrian has had his hand up. Adrian, was that from the last time, or did you want to add in there?
I'm sorry, I didn't take it down. It's it's just to add more trees. That's really what I was going to say.
Okay.
But yeah, lots of trees.
Trees,
right.
trees, 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 and trees.
Okay, so this slide gives you your contact information. I'm sorry, that you have Mark's and Karen's about any questions, and please use the chat tonight. If you have any ideas about the questions that Beth and Karen brought up about the space, the amenities and amenity space, and so that we can have that, but also know that we're coming back to it. Maria is saying, I think I should ask my translator or my interpreter to translate that for us. Thank you, Maria.
That's a great comment. And I also did want to reiterate that we do have separate funding set aside for historic interpretation and wayfinding. And that's where, Maria, we are going to want your help on that to identify what the community would like to see mentioned and discussed there.
So we have about 20 minutes left. We have some city updates we'd like to share with the group. AE, I'm just presuming that your hand just stayed up and you meant to take it down. Let me know. Oh, there you go. Thanks.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the GES connector, Ray.
Yeah, I'm ready to present. I'm going to the next slide. Great. Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Ray Sosa. I'm a program coordinator with OCB's Community Active Living Coalition, or CALC grant, and Safe Route to School grant. I've been working closely with the Denver Connector project team, and today I'll be talking about the Connector's recent launch in Global Area Swansea. You will see some hyperlinks in the slide. This presentation will be sent out to all of you and later tonight, and you'll all be able to click on those links and access those resources. The Denver Connector, which launched last month, week prior to Thanksgiving, is a microtransit service that's on demand, provides complementary existing transit service to RTD's bus and rail system, and it's point-to-point without dedicated stops. Think of it like Uber or Lyft. You can use an app to download. You can use an app to request the service and take you from point A to point B without any stops. It has a dedicated service area, which, as I mentioned, is what's on the next slide, is on Global Area Swansea, and uses smaller vehicles than a traditional bus. The service runs from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. from Monday to Friday, and it connects residents to grocery stores, medical centers, transit stations, schools, jobs, and much more. And I forgot to mention it here, but it's also a free service for all residents, for anyone actually. There is no cost to using the service, whether you live in the area or not. As you see here, this is a service area, covers the majority of the Global Area Swansea neighborhoods, and some resources outside the neighborhood, such as the grocery store on the I-70 roundabout, the Save-A-Lot there, and the King Soopers and Walmart in Commerce City. Next slide. As I mentioned, this presentation will be sent out to all of you. Those links that you see in blue are you are able to click on them, and that'll give you more information about the service, including how to use the app to request a ride, where the links to download the app. And as I mentioned, please, if you have any comments or suggestions, please email the contact information there or email me. We both speak Spanish. We really want to hear how the service can help your community out. Next slide. The other thing I'm going to talk about tonight is about our microgrant funding. So as I mentioned, I'm a program coordinator with our Community Active Living Coalition CAG program, CAG grants, and we still have funding available for microgrant projects in the neighborhood. So if you've already applied and your project is closed out, you can apply again for another round of funding. For anyone who's new to funding, we can provide up to $400 for individuals and $1,500 for organizations. We have pre-approved templates already on our website. So if you have an idea and you just want to look at one of the templates, you're able to download that template, submit it to us, so you don't have to spend much time on the application. And if you have some other idea, we are more than able to help you with getting that project approved and funded. If you have any questions about that, please email me at the calc@denver.gov email. Thank you all for listening. Appreciate it.
So before we move on to Karen, can we just make sure that are there any questions or comments about the connector or the microfunding?
Yes, I'm happy to take questions if that is something people want to do.
I don't see any hands up, but it also, I think you can reach Ray at OCBE and the CAG program in case you have any questions, and also hopefully share the information among your neighbors about the connector, because it's a tremendous service that the city is able to provide. So especially with the organizations, I'm sure that information has already gone out, but anything we can do to help support you in distributing that information, Ray, I'm sure would really enjoy knowing about it. So Karen, bike lanes.
Yes, it's just, this is super simple. We've had a message sign on 45th for I think about 2+ months, and the striping went in. Please tell me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was supposed to go in this morning on 45th and 47th. So striping finally in, and it just delineates where parking is, and then a bike lane inside towards the vehicular lane from that. And that makes the connection to the 41st and Fox station that we were talking about before, with desiring that green connection to all the way to 41st and Fox. So striping is in, that message sign will go away, and it did not impact parking at all. So that's the big picture. And so sorry it took so long for that striping to come in. Every time we were about to do it, it snowed. Thanks.
Okay, then Jim on 51st Avenue.
Yeah, hi. You may recognize me as the engineer running the Heron Pond, that Carpio Sanguinetti project right there on the kind of the right edge of the graphic there. We've been working. Our construction's been underway for several months, and now with the new bridge there, and we asked our contractor to build 51st Avenue first, and as a result, there's a gap where there is no sidewalk or safe pedestrian pathway to Washington. So in a couple weeks, we plan on being out there and actually turning 51st into a one-way road, eastbound only. So the roadway itself isn't wide enough to put in a 10-foot sidewalk and have 2 lanes of traffic with the current configuration. And Mark Gonzalez's project on Washington will ultimately end up giving us sidewalks on both sides of the street and giving us that true great corridor. But in the meantime, we're going to take that south 10 feet of the existing drive lane and just put up the plastic poles, kind of like what you see on Broadway. Not that tightly. We're not going to be that dense as they are on Broadway, but to try and separate the pedestrian path from traffic. Our park project is going to have heavy trucks for a few more months, and then it should quiet down as our excavation settles down. But the businesses and the bridge traffic and events and then ultimately the phase 2 of our project, we'll still be seeing a fair amount of industrial traffic. So we wanted to separate that roadway and make it safe. There is a bus stop there at 50th and Washington, and we foresee a need to make it safe for people to get to the park and maybe ultimately to the east of the river as well. So just want to let everyone know this is coming. We're reaching out to the local businesses there along 51st and then even 52nd, because this will change some of the routing through there. We're going to make everyone come back out on 52nd. You won't be able to go westbound on 51st. So you come back out on 52nd, and there you have a better turn configuration there because the intersection lines up with east and west side. So we just wanted to put it out there and let everyone know that this is coming, and it could be there for probably 3 years until Mark's project comes along. We will be adaptable. If we see that things aren't working, we'll come back out and modify it a bit to make sure. We definitely want those businesses to keep functioning just like they do today and make it work, but we also want to make sure it's safe. So that was my goal today, was just let everyone know that we're working on this, and it will be coming by the end of the year. So if there are any questions on that, I'd be happy to answer them as well.
Any questions, comments for Jim?
Like I said, we will be reaching out to the individuals along that pathway there too. So it's not just whoever showed up today. We'll make sure we're getting everyone that we're affecting.
And Jim, how long? Can you just repeat how long this will be in place? So
we anticipate about 3 years that it'll be a one-way road. But we're going to sign it up really good to make sure everyone knows that it's only eastbound when they're approaching it.
Yeah, and I would like to add that they'll also, during events, there would be some event management, but we really wanted to make sure that this is safe for folks that are walking in this area. And that was the big driver in changing this, is to make sure that this isn't just for folks that are driving, but for community members that would be walking and using that bridge so that they could do that safely.
Okay. A couple of months, maybe 3 months ago, is when Angela Garcia was able to attend the meetings, she talked about the use of the space that was formerly occupied by the tiny homes village. And one of the suggestions that had come out of conversations among a few of the community members was a thought about creating a Globeville food hub, or at least access to food, however that might be imagined within that space. There was, I think, a very successful tree distribution earlier this fall or this winter. I guess it was early winter, late fall. And I think that space was very successful in really bringing community to see that space as sort of a hub. And now we're interested in whether the community has a continued interest in using that space or imagining that space as a food hub, and not that it would be a permanent building, because we know that it's going to be eventually a park space through the commitment of Parks and Recreation, but that there may be opportunities to address one very important issue within the community, and that is access to fresh foods and to other types of perhaps packaged goods with a temporary food hub. And Gail has generously been helping to think about this, but we're wondering if there might be other people who would be willing to join us in that conversation. And if you could just let us know in the chat that you'd love to help us think through. We don't have any ideas on what that might be. There's been a lot of different suggestions. There's a lot of assets in the community and partners in the community who are also interested, but we're just hopeful that maybe some of you might be glad to join us in imagining what it might look like if possible. So just add your name into the chat and we'll be sure to contact you. We'd like to pull everybody together in early January to begin to think about what this might look like. Gail, I don't know if you wanted to add anything else to that. You're on mute.
There's just so many different opportunities here to bring food into the neighborhood. There's been so many different conversations. When you're thinking about a food hub, there's you could bring a tractor trailer with food to this area. And the area we're talking about is 4400 Pearl Street. So there's maybe a farmer's market, maybe there's, you know, a sign up for fresh fruit and vegetables where, you know, we would place our order and then a truck would come once a month. There's the other group that wants to build some temporary greenhouses there. So there's just many opportunities. And, you know, the community does have access to use that area. So I say, let's get it activated. And, you know, we have just planted some planters there. We use the space for also a compost distribution where we just distributed compost to more than 85 homes in Globeville. So there's just so many uses, and I'm just hoping that you all will get involved because I know we have a neighborhood of very talented folks and we need your help with this. So thank you.
So don't, and you know, just let us know, put your name in the chat. We're recruiting.
Mm-hmm. And feel free to reach out to me as well if you have any interest.
So the next meeting is scheduled for January 26th on 2022. As you notice, we've expanded these meetings to be about 90 minutes, and it looks like we're enjoying every minute of those. So, and really terrific conversation, and we'll reiterate and underscore what Beth has written in the chat, that we really appreciate all your thoughts. This has been an incredible group of individuals who have really spent time now for going on 2 years, really meeting with the CAG on a monthly basis and really providing very valuable input. And the input you provided this evening is really taken to heart, and all of the city folks are listening very carefully to all of your comments. So thank you, everybody. We appreciate how heartfelt your comments are and how important the issues are for you. So this is your neighborhood, and we appreciate how passionate you speak about it. So thank you very much. Nancy, last comment, we'll say it for you.
Well, thank you very much. You know, I think we need to bring in the children in helping design and ideas. And I have something anecdotal from a few weeks ago. I'm very good friends with a family that's in one of the Globeville townhouses from the 2013 Jimmy Carter build there. And I've been friends with them for that long. 12-year-old daughter, I took her and her mother to another part of Denver 2 weeks ago. The girl who's 12 years old, who has lived there since she was 3, her mouth dropped open, being in a different neighborhood. And oh my gosh, look how nice. Oh my gosh, this is so clean. I don't see trash. Where are the homeless people? Oh, this is where I want to live. And we were going to sit down on a bench. The mother there is wiping off the bench and saying, oh, that's dirty, don't sit there. And the little girl said, no, Mama, this bench is clean. If it was in Globeville, it would be dirty. You know, Gail talks about heartbreak. I have too, coming into Globeville. And this is what someone is, a 12-year-old is living, the impact that the conditions in Globeville have on the children. The psychological, the emotional impact of what they live with. And the community leaders here, Gail, Anthony, AE, I mean, so many people and so many people through the years claw and fight to get the power of the city people who have the power to say yes to some of our things. And it just bothered me so, and has stayed with me. And I think that's really important. Let the children speak. Let's have banners up on down Washington Street that the children create about their life in Washington, what their hopes are, what they want. And I just think every city person who is involved with us, who is engaged with us, should really let that sit with them about the children.
Powerful words.
And get them involved with these ideas. They are the ones that hopefully will be getting a better quality of life, in that they will see that in their lifetime. They have the wisdom, they have the right to say what they want their neighborhoods to be. Thank you.
Nancy. Very powerful words. Maria?
Y nada más apoyando lo que acaba de decir Nancy, no es que yo esté en contra de nuestros gobernantes o de la ciudad, pero yo me recuerdo cuando estaba el mayor Federico Peña, no estaba Globio como está ahora. Cuando estaba Federico Peña, teníamos una medida de qué tanto podía estar el zacate, la hierba, y si no cortábamos el zacate nos daba ticket. Entonces, no sé si necesitemos volver a hacer lo mismo o qué necesitemos hacer para que nos concienticemos todos los que vivimos en el área, todos, empezando desde el mayor, empezando desde ahí hasta todos los departamentos de la ciudad, apoyándonos de algún modo o dándonos tiquete para poder tener nuestras yardas limpias, para poder tener nuestras áreas limpias. Vienen personas de otras áreas, voluntarios, a limpiar las calles, a limpiar la basura. Yo creo que si nosotros concientizáramos más a nuestra propia gente, podríamos lograr algo mejor. Y realmente lo que dice Nancy es doloroso porque nuestros niños se están dando cuenta y están mirando todo lo que está pasando. Y ellos son los primeros que mencionan las cosas, porque ellos no tienen filtro, a ellos no los callan. Ellos pueden hablar con la naturalidad, con la confianza de decir las cosas como las ven. Entonces, no sé qué debamos hacer, pero yo creo que algo tenemos que hacer. Gracias.
Thank you, Maria. Again, very powerful words. We're right at 7:30, a very productive meeting. Thank you for the tremendous feedback you've given to all of us. And we look forward to seeing you in the new year. We hope you have a very safe and happy holiday, and I look forward to seeing you in 2024. Three. Yeah, I'm rushing
Gracias.
through.
Feliz año nuevo y feliz Navidad para
Gracias,
todos.
Maria. Gracias. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone.